For I know whatever befall me, Jesus doeth all things well.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming back to the podcast. Today's special guest is Amy Cote, who is the director of a connection group at the First Baptist Church of Pasadena. Amy, good to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start right there. What is a connection group, and tell us how that plays into the overall ministry efforts at the First Baptist Church Pasadena?
Sure. So if you've been a member of a church for many years, you probably remember Sunday school. So, in the 21st century, Sunday school has elevated to connection group. So that is the new name for Sunday school. So my husband and I are actually directors of a Sunday school group, connection group, that's called Raising Christian Children. And our class was created for, parents from their 20s all the way to their 50s, and we call it Diapers to Dating. So we talk about different topics in class that parents face. Many of that is just directed towards, having conversations with your kids to face things that they're going to hear at school, and different things that they're going to face in social settings with kids, and especially in public schools and things like that. So we want to prepare our kids for what they're going to face out there when we're not around, and making sure that they make those right decisions without you being present, and that they have that foundation that they can make those decisions on their own. And that's what we talk about in class. So.
Okay. And so backing up a little bit to give some context, talk about the origins of your Christian faith. Is it something that you grew up with, or did you find your faith later on in life?
Actually, I'm very, very blessed to have had a very solid Christian mother that raised me. My father was, raised as a Christian as well. But my mother really established that foundation in us and made sure that we went to church, every Wednesday and Sunday. And I really credit her to that. I'm one of those, and I think that I'm not alone, that, you take it for granted being raised, in a Christian home. You're almost not, I wouldn't say resentful, but you're like, do we really have to go to church? Every kid goes through that, right? That's raised that way. But I really, am thankful, once I got through college and, my early 20s, and I started having my own children. By having that foundation, you always had that whisper, that you always had, something inside of you that pointed you to the right direction, right? And it's because of having that, instilled in you at an early age. And I really credit my mother for that. So I'm very, very blessed. And I actually, in my daily prayers, I thank God for, allowing me to be in a country where, we have the right to go to church without persecution. And, through my travels, I've been to Turkey, and when you see the news of, many of our missionaries that, have to have church in bunkers and things like that, in hiding. And my husband and I just went to the Vatican 2 weeks ago, and you see, many martyrs that, through the years, that have been persecuted for just simply having a Bible, or wanting to worship the way they want to worship. And we're really blessed to have that here in America.
Right. Amy, so many people I've talked to, and I would say personal friends that I grew up with at the church. You spoke a little bit earlier about when you're growing up in a faith, sometimes it's arduous doing the same routines, going to same services every week. Sometimes, I know in my case, 3 times a week, sometimes more than that. And a lot of people hit their late teens and 20s, and they fall off.
It's like a burnout or something, right? Yeah.
It's a burnout. Some people completely walk away from their faith, and then they come back later on, as you said, with children that kind of came back around, so to speak, for you. Have you seen that with other people maybe you came up with, or people you've gotten to know later on in life, maybe comparing stories?
Absolutely. Our connection group, or Sunday school class, is actually full of people that kind of fall into that same category. I would say half of them were raised in a Christian home, and as they started having kids, they were like, okay, we got to get back in, get our kids plugged in. The other half, it's been really interesting. They weren't raised in a Christian home, but they married someone that was, and they were, kind of pulled into that direction. And then we have some that, the husband and wife, or even the single parent, was, became a late Christian. And we love that. That's what we love about that class is we get so many different perspectives. So you don't just have the stamp Christian parent, you know what I mean? Like we've been raised in that in all of our lives. It's been really interesting to get the different perspectives of how people have been raised. And we use that to our benefit to talk about those different scenarios that kids could face in class and other families and how their children are raised. And it really helps us share that with our kids on what they can see when they go to other people's homes, and if they're not comfortable, or inviting those kids to our homes because they see what a Christian family can be like. We have people in our class that's actually what encouraged them to start going to church, is they went to friends' houses that were Christians and they weren't, and they saw how different their family units were, and that actually encouraged them to start going to church. So
Hmm. And the perspective going to Rome, you talked about you and your husband going to the Vatican a couple of weeks ago, and obviously that there would be a lot of different faiths. They're primarily the Catholic faith is
right.
based out of there, but I know there's other churches that have been established in the region. What was it like having that perspective? Had you ever gone before?
No, it was our first time,
Okay.
and I will say we were very blessed to be a part of a tour group that allowed us into St. Peter's Basilica very early, and so it was quiet, and it was a very moving experience to be in the presence of such a holy place, and Peter's actually buried there, and to see a statue that they have established for him, and to see the shrine pretty much they have over his burial spot was just extremely moving, because the way that he was persecuted and crucified upside down, and and how they have so much respect for him, and just there was so much more there that was extremely moving, but it was a very moving experience for us.
Hmm.
So
Did it? I guess I don't want to say solidify your faith in the sense that maybe your faith is weak, but did it make it more complete now that you visited a part of the collective Christian history, and like you say, you see all of these things that you've only heard about before?
I don't think so. I think it was amazing to me to see it. I don't think it did anything as far as, my faith, because I feel like you said, it's
Right.
pretty solid. I think it was one thing that it did for me is kind of like what we talked about a few minutes ago, was it really puts it in perspective what other Christians before us went through, the persecutions that they faced, even the doors to St. Peter's Basilica had, how all of the apostles died.
Hmm.
And it's just, and to them, seeing that on the doors, it's a reminder of how blessed we really are, um, where we live, to be able to worship and believe our religious beliefs the way we want to, right? It's our choice, where other people didn't have that. So
Right. And it's interesting. You talked a little bit earlier about we have it pretty good in this country as far as where we worship and
right.
the facilities that we have, and you don't have to look very far on Facebook to see maybe follow certain church groups or religious groups, and you see they're worshiping in what looks like a bombed out shell of a building, and they're happy just to have that, just to get out of the rain.
I'll tell you, we had a Ukrainian foreign exchange student last year, and it was really moving when she was with us whenever the war started, and she actually got a video from her family. They were in a bunker singing, worship songs.
Hmm.
It just puts it into perspective where they still continue to worship even while they have bombing sirens going off. And it was just it was it gave us chills, to see that video with her family.
Right. Going back to the program that you and your husband teach at the church.
Hmm.
Now, I know growing up, you said, we talked about Sunday school being sort of the precursor to how it's changed and the names changed over time.
Hmm.
I remember when I was in Sunday school, it was, you're learning songs, you're learning scriptures, and you're learning basic biblical principles. And as you get older, it's how, you start to learn how to apply that to your life. But we didn't have the social issues that we have of today. We didn't
Right.
have all of these other lifestyle options, not to get too deep into that, but just
More difficult topics to
very
discuss, right?
difficult topics.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you discuss briefly, and you know, in generalities is fine, but just some of the challenges that you face teaching the youth of today, as opposed to what maybe you or I or others may have dealt with in the past.
Well, so our class is actually for parents. So we
Okay.
don't actually teach youth, but we teach more of the parents and how they can use the skills and the topics that we talk about in class to help parent and to help direct their kids with these topics because
Okay.
they are going to face these difficult conversations with their kids.
And what led you into teaching classes in the first place? Is it something, have you done it before and this is just, uh, you know, the most recent endeavor that you've done it or gotten into, or is this something completely new?
No, so we've actually been directors of the class for over 10 years now.
Okay.
And it's really funny because my husband was raised Catholic and I was raised Baptist and actually went to First Baptist Pasadena, the church that we're at right now. And so when he and I started attending the church, just because of his background in the Catholic Church, he was not interested in joining a Sunday school class. They were still called Sunday school classes then.
Okay.
And it really took a lot of effort for me to actually get him to go because he thought it was going to be more of like the catechism class where
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to study material and they may call on you. And I was like, no, that's not what these classes are about. And so once I got him to a Sunday school connection group and he saw it was more studying the Bible and learning about it and not drilling, details into you and Bible stories. He actually started enjoying it. And so it just kind of fell in our lap where the directors of our class were moving away. And so I'd already been involved in helping with social events and things like that. And I was like, hey, we'd be happy to take this on. We have an incredible teacher. We don't actually teach the class, we're more of directors and kind of help with topics and things like that and social gatherings that we put
Mhm.
together so the families can interact with each other and the parents can kind of grow even outside of the church. So that's what we've been doing, but we've been doing it for over 10 years and it's just extremely rewarding and seeing, all the families that kind of have become friends and we have a foundation where, if someone's having surgery or if someone's having a baby, we step in and provide meals and support and groceries and things like that that you don't really always get, if you don't have a great network around you. So,
Right. So this column and this podcast in particular is all about putting your, putting your faith in action, whether it's someone that becomes a preacher or a teacher or whatever it is that they're doing with their faith. And it sounds like you found a little bit of a calling with your own faith. So with people out there who are people of strong faith, maybe they don't even, maybe they have a talent they don't even realize they have. What would be some of your advice and tips, Amy, for anyone that may be wondering how they can do more, maybe even create their own ministry? It could be small, it doesn't have to be a big ministry, but just kind of finding their fit, but maybe they just don't know how to even get started.
yeah. So, I mean, God gives everybody gifts. You just sometimes have to take the time to figure out what those are. And mine is service. Like, I love to take care of people. I love to, and that's why I think the director of the class is something that I've really enjoyed is, making sure people are taken care of, have food, or, if there's a need that they have that, we step in, like we've taken in a Ukrainian foreign exchange student, like that's the kind of things that I enjoy. But I think it's finding out what your gift is, and really drilling into that and getting plugged in. And, every church or organization, there's different opportunities that you can do and plug yourself into to give back to your community and other Christians or non-Christians and bring folks into the church. So.
Hmm. Hmm. And your own church in particular, if people watching this are maybe in the area and they want to stop by and visit, and maybe that sounds like a class that would they be interested in for themselves or for their kids, where would be the best place for them to find that information?
So our church has a website and it's fbp.org. So it stands for First Baptist Pasadena.org. There's all kinds of information on there about our connection groups. And we have many different varieties. So for, single parents to, our class, which is raising Christian children. And then they're all divided up into different types of, learning styles that, if you want to learn more of just Bible study groups, things like that, or a men's class, ladies class. They have all different varieties of classes for all different flavors. So, yeah.
Okay. And I guess in conclusion, Amy, if you can go and look back at your life and the role that faith has had in it, uh, can you, are there any times in your life where your faith has kind of pulled you out of a hard spot, or has it really contributed to helping you become successful in where you're at in this stage in your life?
So I will say one of the hardest moments that I went through was in 2019. I've been at my current role for 30 years, but so 5 years ago, I was actually presented with my job being relocated to Chicago. And so I was asked, do you want to move to Chicago? And of course, absolutely not. So I was pretty much told that my job was going to be eliminated if I didn't relocate to Chicago. And I have to say that I really had a peace about it. I prayed about it every day, even though was kind of faced with 90 days notice, things like that. I really had a peace about it, and I prayed about it every day. And through that faith, different things worked out where I was almost to the end of the 90 days. I'd, sent out my resume. I'd had interviews and things like that. And it's amazing how God works in mysterious ways, right? But literally, I got a message sent to me one day. It was literally like a month until my 90 days was up, and it was, hey, you were on my mind. We have a position that I think you'd be perfect for. Would you be interested? And it worked out beautifully, and I'm still in that position today. And I've been able to stay where I work, and I just hit my 30-year anniversary. But I would say that because of my faith and knowing that God has always taken care of me, I had a peace about it, that
Hmm.
there was a plan, there was a reason why that happened, and now I see that reason because where I'm at now, I'm really enjoying my role. I'm making changes. I'm successful at this role. Have a great manager. So there was always a purpose, but I will say that that was one of the scariest moments, getting presented with, notice after being somewhere for 25 years. It's kind of one of
Right.
those who moved my cheese moments, right? Um, and but having that peace, and I actually did a lesson on this at in our connection group about trusting God, to get you through. You might be faced with something that seems trying, but having that faith, you know, having that relationship with God, knowing that He's there and trusting Him that He's going to see you through it, makes a big difference.
Hmm. And a lot of people would, some people fully embrace the concept of the plan, the great plan that,
Mhm.
that we walk, and other people struggle with that because
Yeah,
maybe with patience, they want the plan to manifest earlier. They're looking for,
right.
some landmarks to direct them where to go. And sometimes it's hard to follow through and wait patiently for God to work things out.
That's true. You have to know the balance, right? It's like, how much do I put forth where I'm not altering the plan versus I don't want to just sit there and do nothing, right? So you have to kind of know that balance. And I'm not going to lie, there was moments I would be sitting at my desk and I was like, okay, Lord, I'm ready for something to happen, especially as I was getting down to the 90 days. But yeah, it's amazing that's the beauty of our faith, is like sitting back and reflecting back on your life at all those times that He was there and you just didn't realize it, and that there were things in motion that you couldn't quite see until the end, right? And that happened. It's like that for us today, right? So having this interview, there could be trickle down effects that we have no idea will happen, right? So
No, that's absolutely true. I can't tell you how many times just a conversation in passing with someone, just a little nugget that they deposited, and just in conversation, and you leave there and you think, I may never see that person again, but now I've just thought about something completely different
exactly.
because of that one person or that brief interaction.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. So, Amy, I know service runs deep on both your the married side of your family and then,
Mhm.
your side of the family, with your mom being a former council member in Deer Park and your husband Steve Cody being a council member in Pasadena. Talk about how that sense of service on both sides of your family has changed your perspective on being involved with the community and even in your church.
Yeah. So, I mean, on my mom's side, my grandparents were both mayors of towns that they lived in as well. And service is just something that we feel very strongly about. And Steve too. His parents owned a donut shop in Deer Park, Bosa Donuts for many years, for 30 years actually. And so taking care of people and serving people, it runs deep in his family as well as my mom's side. Um, and I think that that's seeing that and growing up with that and having my grandparents serve on many different boards and community service projects and Eastern Star and Masonic Lodge. As a child, I was, a part of a lot of those organizations, and that's what I saw, and that's what my mother saw. And so, and we were always active in church and involved in our church and community. And so I think that I consider myself very blessed to be a part of a family that gives back to others. And I'm, actually doing that with my children now. My daughter actually is at Sarah's House, which is an organization that is established for women in abusive domestic homes or situations where they have a safe place to go. So many of these ladies with their children escape, many just leaving everything behind, and they have to start over. And this is a safe place for them to go and have shelter. They have like little apartments, and so they bring their children, and it's like a community where they can safely reestablish their lives and get back on their feet. And they help them provide, job interview skills and clothing for interviews, and help them get on a path of success and get out of that domestic abusive situation.
Okay, very good. Well, Amy, I think that does it for today. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of those perspectives and some of the experiences you've had that's obviously helped bolster your faith, and now you're helping the next generation.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.